this morning is Bennett Gupta, venture strategist and founder of the scaleup project. Mr. Gupta's career spans over 35 years in technology development, management, and entrepreneurship, including 15 years in business coaching for small business and startups across Quebec and beyond. He also served for 5 years on the board of the Centre Local de Développement de Québec, a key player in the economic development of the Quebec City region, and last year as vice president of the organization. Mr. Gupta's work in developing high-performance startups and communities has won him several accolades, including Canada's top 10 Rockstar Mentor by Startup Canada and Futurepreneur Canada. Mr. Gupta holds a Bachelor's of Engineering from the Royal Military College of Canada, a Master's of Science from the Rochester Institute of Technology, a certificate in entrepreneurship development from MIT Sloan School of Management, and is currently completing his executive MBA at McGill University at HEC Montreal. This morning, he will be sharing his ideas on the very important topic of scale-ups and growth. The title of his talk is Scaling Up is Hard to Do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bennett Gupta.
How many of you have a business of your own? Please raise your hand. Keep your hand up. How many of you know somebody who's an entrepreneur? A few more people. And how many of you work for a private business? Well, as you can see, entrepreneurship touches each and every one of us. Madam Chair, dear colleagues, this morning I want to talk about the importance of entrepreneurship, what we're doing somewhat well and what we can do even better. Entrepreneurship is so important because it touches every one of us. It generates the value added for our economy and for our society so that we can become the kind of community that we want to be. However, business is not forever. Business has a lifespan. Businesses are born, they grow, they mature, they either fade away as the market is focused on something else, or they're sold, or they implode spectacularly in default or debt. A recent Bank of Development Canada survey found that over 40% of owner-managed small and medium businesses plan to be sold over the next 5 years. So we are poised right now to lose a big chunk of our economy. What are we going to do about it? All this energy that we put in startups is not enough. We need to focus not only on starting businesses and starting them the right way, but also growing businesses. And so that way we can grow our economy and create the kind of environment that we want to create. And these are the 3 points that I wanted to touch on this morning. Starting businesses. We all hear about startups. And actually in Canada, we're quite good at starting businesses. A recent survey by the Kaufman Foundation, which is called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, found that 17% of Canadians are starting a business or have started a business, compared to only 13% of Americans. So on a per capita basis, we're doing pretty good. But the problem is that 50% of those businesses don't make it past 5 years. 70% of those businesses, at the start, they don't even plan their vision of what they want to create. They don't plan to expand past 5 or 6 employees. And only 20% of these new businesses aspire to have 20 or more employees. And over 75% have no plans to export. So what happens with this mindset is that fewer than 1% of these startups actually survive after 5 years of operation. The cost of starting a business and the risk has gone way down over the years. When I started my own first business in 1995, costs were really high because I had to have a space, and also the permits and the taxes and everything were very, very high. Today, the cost of the infrastructure, the cost of marketing, the cost of operating business has gone way down, so more people can start a business. But the problem there is that most people aim to create what a friend of mine called a 3B business. Earn just enough money to buy the BMW, the bungalow, and go on beach vacations. So this idea of, I want to build it just enough so that I am okay, is a big problem. Because keep in mind, we have an aging population. So more and more people are leaving the workforce. So those of us who are producing, who are developing, who are creating wealth, we need to be able to not only take care of ourselves, but also take care of our neighbors. And that's the definition of being a citizen of a successful country. And when we are too focused on just making enough to satisfy our own needs, that's called rent seeking. And rent seeking is a very dangerous behavior. Because what happens if we're rent seeking instead of growth seeking? Rent seeking means I take, but I don't give enough so that society is able to generate enough for me to take again. And that's what happened with Spain. That's what happened with Greece. Their economies imploded, people left, and there was a lot of suffering. We don't want to have that in Canada. This is why we need to focus on scale-ups. At the core of a scale-up is the ability to export, is the ability to grow. And here I'm not talking about scale-ups to become the next Google or Facebook. The OECD, the Organization for Economic Development, defines scale-up as growing 20% per year for 3 consecutive years, starting with 10 employees. So very attainable, very doable. And we have to focus on growing. Growing in 2 ways, what I call rabbits, meaning companies that are growing for the first time into their local market, who become influencers in their market, either by price or by offerings, doing about $5 million to $10 million a year. And that creates a solid local regional economy. And then finally gazelles, who go to the next level and start exporting, and who start creating $20, $30, $50 million a year, and they start hiring. And they bring cash from outside the ecosystem, outside the community, into the community. And that's how we create the wealth we need to be able to get Canada to the next level. Growth is essential. For the very simple reason is that our population is always growing. There are just more bodies to feed. But also our needs evolve, our desires evolve, our objectives evolve. Standing still means death. And we've seen that, like I mentioned. Countries like Greece, countries like Spain, we don't want to become those countries. We have the smarts, we have the abilities to make a difference in the world. The world needs more Canada, as you see at the Indigo bookstore. And we need to celebrate not just the launch, not just the start, but the growth of business. Canada has what it takes to build strong businesses that export. Just think of Bombardier, just think of Couche-Tard, and at a more local level, Spotify, Lightspeed, Busbud, others. We need more ambition, we need more scale-ups, more value and wealth creation. Scaling up is hard to do, but scale up we must. Madam Chair.